Hello, my name's Rob and welcome to Swift Slots. And look at all the crap I've 3D printed in the last 7 days. Now don't worry guys, don't go, don't run away. This is a slot car channel and it always will be a slot car channel. I'm not moving into 3D printing, it's just an extra tool as Shotgun Dave said before. However, I do think that I've got a slightly unique perspective on this 3D printing lark because A, I can't stand computers, B, I can't work computers, and 3, I've never actually seen a 3D printer running until 7 days ago when I bought my Bambu Lab A1. So this is kind of where I'm at after week 1 of 3D printing, and I thought it would give you quite a unique perspective from my point of view anyway, of how somebody with no skills whatsoever can actually work and run a 3D printer in their first week. Now don't get me wrong, it wasn't plain sailing. Even though the Bambu is supposed to be really easy to work, they call it the Apple of 3D printers, I personally didn't find it easy at all. And if it wasn't for my good friend Ray, thank you Ray, who's fantastic on computers, telling me to go and research G codes for 3D printing, I would never have gotten past the looking at my printer built up in its cabinet stage. So when I went onto YouTube, I typed in G code on Bambu so you can 3D print, and I found this video, link below, is 40 seconds long and it changed everything for me. It suddenly meant that I could suddenly download all the files that I needed to do, whereas I couldn't do that before, because normally on a computer, if you want to save a file, you click on the top, you press save, drop down memory, save it to somewhere, and you just send it. That wasn't the case with me. Now don't get me wrong, I don't know anything about computers or printers, so what I'm talking about now could be complete nonsense, but it's enabled me to print this, and I will be looking much deeper into it and I get a bit more comfortable with what I'm doing, and I'll see if there's a more logical way of getting this stuff from the program into the printer. And at the moment, that's kind of where I am. Now you can send the program from your printer, from your computer to your printer wirelessly. Now that's not the way that I can work, because my printer and my house and everything else is a long way apart and I can't get Wi-Fi to my printer, so I have to put all my builds onto an SD card and load it into my printer. So that's the way I have to work. I don't get a choice in it. So that was what was really holding me up, having the inability to take my images from Bambu Studio or Lab or whichever it's called, and then getting it onto an SD card and then being able to get it to run on my printer. Anyway, with that all sorted and that little 40-second video unlocked all the secrets of how to get it off my computer into my printer, I was able to print all this rubbish. Now some of this are standard prints from the printer when it arrives to you brand new. You simply turn it on, you scroll through the memory and you say print. If you're watching this video, you will be able to run the printer like that, I can assure you, because it's no more difficult than going print. Anybody can do it. So if you want to do something a little bit more complicated, like making your own files or taking some stuff from the Maker World, then that's a little bit more difficult. And like I say, that little 40-second video below really opened the door to help me do that. So anyway, as you can see, got a pile of rubbish here. So I'll just show you very briefly what I've done. So I printed a June ornithopter for my missus because she absolutely adores June. She always has. She's got all the books. She's seen all the films. She's read all the books. She knows all about it. She loves her ornithopter. So I'm going to show you all these in a minute on the table. And then I've printed this, and I'll show you this one. This particular car for me, a little mini, because I'm on a bit of a mini rant at the moment. Not rant, I'm on a bit of a mini thing at the moment. So that was mine. And I printed this one off for Rob's sale. So he doesn't know that yet, but that's Rob's. Anyway, and I printed off my very first print, a little benchy, as you often have to do. It's the law apparently. And I've made up my own things over here. I've made up my own little box, and I made a little thing there for my daughter. And I got a little tool off the actual Bambu printer. Anyway, so I just thought I would show you what I've done in the first 7 days of my 3D printing, just to give some of you guys a bit of enthusiasm or encouragement. If you wanted to get a 3D printer and you're like, oh no, I can't do that, it's far too difficult. And that's exactly what I was like 7 days ago. No, can't do 3D printing. I can't do it. I can't work computers. And it was true until I found that video below. But if you were thinking about getting a 3D printer, now is the time to get a Bambu at the very least, because I got Black Friday deals on, and I got my printer for £250 with 4 rolls of PLA or 4 rolls of filament material and the machine delivered for free, 250 quid. I don't think it comes any cheaper than that. And if you go for more refills, then they're even cheaper at the moment because of the Black Friday deal. So if you were thinking about buying a 3D printer, now is the time, I think, and hopefully showing you what I've managed to achieve and that little video below, you should be able to join the dots and get yourself on the way to 3D printing. So as I said, I'm going to get you on the table and I'm going to show you all these bits one by one just to show you where I'm at in my first week of printing. Okay, so let's start at the beginning, where everybody starts apparently, and that is my little Benchy. Now this is, for those of you that don't know, this is like a standard default print that your printer is kind of default to print at the beginning. I guess it's just a little test piece, but this was the very first thing I ever saw fully 3D printed, and it's the first time I've ever seen a 3D printer actually running for the first time, and that was to create my little presets. As soon as the machine was actually up and running, I didn't need to do anything from the computer. I just needed to press go on my printer and print off my little test Benchy, and they give you a little bit of filament as well, a little bit of standard white PLA, and there we are. So that's my little Benchy. Pretty good quality, I thought, not too bad at all for a little filament printer, little FDM printer. So there we are. So that was the very first thing that came off my printer, was my little test Benchy. And then once I'd done that, another little standard thing inside the printer was this little scraper, just to sort of help get some of the prints off the table. I have actually used it a couple of times. It is quite useful. I've had to resharpen the edge a little bit because it folded over, rub it on a bit of sandpaper. So that was nothing. Little bit of a scraper there, no problem. That was about 2.5 grams of filament, and the Benchy was, I forget now, is it 20 grams of filament? I'm not entirely sure. It's not a lot, but there's enough filament left to do another 2 more of these from the free filament that I got. So with these 2 things out the way with, I then turned my attentions to this rather large elephant. Now with my pack, I got some white PLA that came standard with my printer. I also bought some black PLA, some standard black PLA. You get it's cheap, and I just wanted to see, use it for testing and whatnot. And, buoyed up with my confidence of just picking that from the menu and printing it, I also picked this. It's very, very large. You can see it's fully articulated. And I printed this straight off the computer, or straight off the printer rather, all preset into the printer. All you literally do is load in some black filament and you just press go and it does it all for you. It really isn't difficult. It just did it automatically. This is quite a big thing, look. And I printed this off for my wife because she absolutely adores elephants. I thought she'd love this the second she saw it on the printer, as soon as I showed it to her, and she did. She absolutely fell over and she was like, oh my, that's awesome. I absolutely love it. I thought she might. And she does love it. So with that all printed off, I then had to try and struggle to get the printer to do what I really wanted it to do. And like I said, I was really struggling to get my files off of Bambu Lab or Studio, whatever they call it, onto an SD card and working. And then I watched that video, and then bingo, I actually managed to make it work. And the first thing I did is I printed off one of these. Not this. This is the second one I did, or the first one I did rather. And this is a little guard to go on the side of the printing head, and there's a little fan behind it, and it cools the actual printing head down. And I was a little bit worried because I had read on some forums where people have sort of been messing around with the head, changing the whatever, and they put their finger on the fan and they thought they might have damaged the fan. So a little cover I thought would have been a really good idea. And on MakerWorld there's a ton of files that you can use, and MakerWorld is part of the Bambu system, so it's really, really easy to pull stuff off of MakerWorld and import it into your Bambu Lab Studio, and then send it straight to the printer once you found that G code. But this is what I printed off first. I felt that those holes were a little bit small, so then I printed off one that's slightly bigger, and obviously not strong, but it still protects the fan. And I used that on my printer. I put a little picture of it just there. So that's it. That was my first actual proper project pulled from MakerWorld. So obviously, once I'd got my first project off of MakerWorld through the Bambu Lab and through my printer, I then obviously turned straight to that image that I showed you in the last video of my actual Swift Slots chassis that I'd designed on Tinkercad. So this is the first chassis I did, and as you can see there are a few problems with it. I knew there would be because this is my very first time of trying to program anything at all. So the first thing that went wrong was when it came up in the file, it said that you've got floating aspects or whatever it said, and I didn't know what it was. I couldn't work out what it was. Turns out that these letters were just about resting on the surface, not enough really for the printer to be confident to print it onto the actual existing surface. So as you see, some of the letters have disappeared and some of them haven't. So that was one problem. Also, I forgot to put a little piece in there to recess for slightly bigger gear bosses, and also these pinch points on the bearings are a little bit too tight, and for some reason I made the whole chassis about 2mm too narrow. But apart from that, all the actual criteria worked for this chassis. So if you wanted to actually fit a motor into it, you actually can. The motor fits in there beautifully, drops in like that. Your motor plate on the back all fits up, and it fits up exactly the same as it did when it was a resin casting, and the gears and bearings all fit in it as well. So that was a success, but needed some modifications. So with the modifications done, I then moved on to my second print of the same thing, which is this one here. So as you can see, these are standard Scalextric bearings, and this is a standard Scalextric gear. Now if you use slotted gears, you don't need the little recess in the chassis, but if you're using Scalextric gears, you do. So I can show you now. There's a little recess that I actually redesigned in there, which means that the boss of this Scalextric gear now just about goes into the chassis and it clears nicely. Also, you'll notice how easy the bearings are now to clip into the chassis. There we are. So I've relieved those little pinch points, and now that all turns beautifully. And the way that I solved those letters, because I couldn't work out how to drop these letters down in Tinkercad, because by the time I'd gone through this, it had amalgamated this program so many times that I couldn't work out how to get that lettering gone or lowered. So what I did is I put a little 1mm plate between the letters and into the chassis, slipped it in there, and that sort of took up any distance that was missing on the actual original file, and that solved that problem. So the letters are slightly shallower, but they're all nice and solid now. And also I made the chassis 2mm wider just for that little bit of extra allowance, and that's it. This whole thing is now a goer. So the one thing that I did notice when I was printing off this Mark II version is that I printed this off on the printer exactly as you see it there. So there is the textured base, and I grew it vertically. Now obviously we got some very, very large overhangs here, and that's not great for 3D printing because there's not a lot to support it on that underside there. So then I redesigned the whole thing, and I ended up with my Mark III chassis kind of thing. So this is exactly the same as the other prints, all exactly the same, apart from this time the part that I used for the motor there, I actually turned its orientation so that that face there is now facing down, and I grew it just like that, which meant that it was able to print those circles nice and cleanly, and it just literally lifts the back up until it's the correct thickness, and now that fits absolutely perfectly, no problems at all, and it's a lot neater and tidier print. Now, one thing I have noticed since I went back onto the Bambu shop to buy some more PLA of different colours for my family, they all want different things printing from Maker World, I noticed this texture is beautiful. It's a fantastic piece of texturing, but I noticed on the Bambu shop you can actually buy different textured plates. Now I got a carbon fibre one coming because I think you guys, when I make these chassis for real, I think that you guys would really appreciate a carbon fibre lower chassis. So when you turn your model car upside down, it'll look like carbon fibre weave. So that's what I've done. So there we are. So that is all the projects that I've done for my chassis. And then, as I said, I then moved on to doing something else in my Tinkercad program, and I made this. Now this is a box for the extraction of fumes in my 3D printer enclosure, because I made a large box for it. It's all airtight and sealed with a nice big door, and that obviously PLA apparently does give off a little bit of gas, not too much. There's no regulations to cover it at the moment, so I guess it'll be our asbestos of the 21st century in a couple of years time, but whatever. So just to solve any problems with the old gassing in there, I've made this. I've got a 40mm pipe extracting out from my tank to the outside air, and this little fan here, this little 40mm computer fan, just sucks a bit of air. It's 3 cubic feet a minute, so in 3 minutes I can remove all 10 square feet of the material or the air in my box. It's not wildly strong, but it does the job. and a little switch on the side there as well. And as I designed this in Tinkercad, I could have actually made this in about half an hour with a bit of resin, but I persevered just to learn the process, and it's gone pretty well. I'm quite happy with it. So these are two halves to join through the middle. I made a little, I don't know if you're going to see on camera, but I made a little lip on the inside there that overlaps the two halves so they can glue together. And then this front fascia comes in from the front. I've held it in with two screws there. I'll put a little picture of it there on 3D. And there we are. So this just plugs into a USB in the socket in my printer cabinet. And that sits underneath the table that my printer is on, because my printer is hovering above the table by about 3 inches on stand. So I've got a little void underneath the table, and that sits underneath there. And I can turn it on and just do some gentle extracting while I'm printing. So that was a very good success, and that didn't take me too long in Tinkercad to make, but I have discovered the limits of Tinkercad. It's a little bit restrictive. I would like more control over my measurements, so I really am going to have to go and start learning a slightly better program, because I think Tinkercad is okay. It's got me this far, but it's not the easiest of things to work if you really want to focus on measurements. So I think I need to move on. So if any of you guys want to recommend me a really easy program to use that relies more on measurements than physical blocks moving about the place, then I'm all ears, because I'm new to this. So there we are. So that is my little extractor fan. Bit of a success, I think. And then we move on to this. Now I went back to MakerWorld, and so Rob Say and I were having a little bit of a mini thing at the moment, and I thought I'd make these little BMW minis in 3D print. They're really cool. I mean, they're really simple. They didn't take too long to print. They're not the most high fidelity of things, but they're pretty damn cool. I like them anyway. So they're just a snap together kit. So this one is mine, and this one is Rob's Sales. So if you ever watch this, Rob, and I don't see you beforehand, this is your one, mate, and I want you to build this on your channel. I want you to build it, I want you to film yourself building it, and I want you to show the world building a 3D printed mini from the Swift Slots new lab. So there we are, mate. This is yours. So come and get it and then build it on your channel. And like I say, my wife is a massive Dune fan, and she absolutely fell over when she saw this ornithopter on MakerWorld. And I thought, I have to get this done for her. I really have to learn how to do it just so that I can print this for her. I really wanted to get this printed for her. I really wanted to see her face when she actually got it in her hand, because I don't think she was expecting it. And it's absolutely fantastic. It came as a flat kit. Again, I'll put the little picture here somewhere. And I printed it out. And this was one of the first things I did when I suddenly learned how to get the stuff into a G-code and off of the Bamboo Studio. But it's absolutely fantastic. These wings all fold back. It's a really, really nice thing, and she really likes it. And it came, as well as the flat kit, it came with this little Dune plaque. So that's pretty cool. And she built most of this up herself, more or less. And then I went over it afterwards and put a bit of glue here and there so it didn't fall apart. Now she can hang it off of her bedroom ceiling. She absolutely loves Dune, and she loves her ornithopter. And then lastly, I made this for my daughter. She's still picking some things in MakerWorld to make, but she said I would like this for the minute. So, little alien spacecraft picking up a cow. It's quite cool. It's very thin. It's very simple. Just hangs on the wall and just kind of looks a bit like that. Quite cool. I think that you can get mice that go over doorways and stuff like that. They're pretty cool as well, but there we are. So that's that. So that's my alien as well. And there you are. That's a quick summary of where I'm at after the first 7 days of owning my 3D printer. Now don't worry, this channel is not going to become a 3D printing channel. It's just another tool that I can use to make the projects that I do. I'll still always be using resin and rubber and brass and all the other things that I use, and my machines. It's just that 3D printing now is just giving me the options to make some flashier chassis, or maybe some motor pods or anything else like that, so I can make some of my custom builds in the future that little bit better. So if any of you guys are thinking about getting a 3D printer, you're like, not sure, I hope that this video has given you the encouragement to go and try it. It's not that difficult. Once I discovered that video below, the world unlocked, at least as far as a Mac is concerned, and an A1, and I was away. So anyway, I hope that you've enjoyed this content, and if you have, maybe you subscribe, and if you could hit the little bell button, that would be awesome. So until the next time, thank you very much.